Welcome to the From My Stand podcast with Matt Hinkle. Whether you are an avid hunter, a novice, or someone interested in the sport, Matt has a unique perspective to share. Sit back, relax, and kick your boots up as Matt shares what he's seeing from his stand.
Hi friends, thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle, and I'm sitting down today with Casey Hinkle, my hunting partner. And you met Casey in the last episode if you saw the last one. So Welcome back, Casey.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, today what we're going to do, it's May, and it's actually pouring down rain out today. And turkey season's over. So, you know, we're hunters and we're usually always thinking about it, even if we're not doing it.
Yeah.
But I thought today we might, one of the things I want to do on this channel is feature trophies. And so today we're going to talk to Casey about his personal best. And what is it? What is your personal best?
It's a mainframe. He's a mainframe 9-pointer. He's got a split G2, and then he had a split brow that was probably 7.5 inch. Total gross score was 180.
Okay. So. All right. And well, I want to hear the story about it. When did you first catch a glimpse, either on camera or in person?
Yeah.
When did you learn of this deer's existence?
So.
And what year again did you shoot it in?
I shot him in 19.
Okay. So when did you catch your first glimpse of him?
Was 17.
Okay.
So 3 seasons.
So it didn't happen overnight.
No.
Okay.
No, it was
a
lot of
about that in just a minute.
Yeah.
So 17, you catch your first glimpse. Was it camera?
Camera.
Was it in person?
It was a camera picture.
Okay.
Yep.
And now he was obviously special in 2019. Did he look special in 2017?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
So you knew you had something.
Yeah, he was a good one.
Would you have shot him in 2017?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you ever, okay, so you see him for the first time in 2017, you get him in 2019, so that's 3 hunting seasons. Did you ever see him from a stand? Did you ever get a shot at him?
Nope.
How'd that happen?
Never saw him on hoof.
Really?
Not one. I've got hundreds. I mean, I'm saying hundreds of pictures out in daylight, everything on right, crossing by my stands. Never saw him once.
Did any other hunters that you hunt with or around the area, did anybody see him that you know of?
Not that I know
of. Okay. So he was pretty smart. You hunted him for 3 seasons and didn't see him till you got him.
Yeah, till I got him. That's when I flung the arrow.
Well, why don't you tell us how it all went down? Tell the story of that buck, and we're going to we might superimpose some pictures. We might fade out from us a time or two during this episode and show the actual deer if you're all right with that. But just tell us kind of how it all went down.
Yeah, so I think it was either November 9th or 11th. I'd have to check the camera. It was 2017. I think I took off work. I had a couple weeks vacation total for the year, and I was actually breaking that vacation up, not to take a full week at a time, but more so take 2 days, like Thursday and Friday of 1 week and the following Monday. So I think it was a Thursday or Friday. I left home that morning. I think I actually went down to Cabela's. That's why I didn't hunt the morning. Was the local Cabela's now. They had a pair of binoculars I was wanting. It was the last day of their sale, whatever it was. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to hunt the morning. I'm just going to go down there, pick up those binoculars, and I'll go straight to my camp. So I think my dad was going down at the same time. So we met up at our tent. And, this is before we ran cell cams.
Yeah.
So we had the old, the Brownie
cameras.
Go pull the card. So I either had a card reader
and all that stuff.
Yeah. I'd either have that or a laptop, whatever, however I was looking at them. So I was like, all right, let's go. I've been down here in, probably a week, and it was kind of a rainy morning. It wasn't, weather-wise wasn't great, but it was clearing up. It was, the rain was slowing down. So I told told my dad, I was like, God, so I'm gonna go pull the cameras on, which would be kind of the northeast side of the property. And he's like, well, I'll go to the west and the southwest side and get those. And then we'll, come back to camp and we'll see what we got. If, they'll tell us what's staying to hunt, what's been going on. So we take off. I go pull the cart on top, and then I had one down over the hill. So I slipped down there real quick, pulled it, and then came back to camp, met up with my dad. So we're sitting there. We got a big wall tent we set up. So we're in there, thumbing through, all these pictures, and then all of a sudden, there's this really nice buck. I'm like, man, and it was, the first picture of him, you see him out there, you could tell he was a bigger deer. It's his antlers, he had the mass, time length, his body being at that time of the year in the rut. I mean, his body wasn't like a big cow, like sometimes they are late season or whatever.
Yeah.
But you could tell he was an older deer. You tell by his shape of his face. And I'm like, oh man. I told Dad, I was like, man, look at this. I was like, this. And I'm like, when was this? And I'm like, man, that was 30 minutes ago. It was right before I pulled up. It was, I think probably while I was pulling up to camp and getting stuff, put in the tent. I think he was crossing. It was only 400 yards from my camp there. So I'm like, man. So, pulled my phone out, took a picture of it.
Well, had you not got him later that day, that would have been an expensive pair of binoculars.
Oh man,
you'd have been hunting him if you wouldn't went out.
I know. Yeah, I know. It was.
But it all worked.
It all worked out. It just took a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm like, man. So I told Dad, like, this is the deer. So I told him right there, I'm like, this deer we got to go after. And he's like, yeah. So throw that card out, put that card aside, grab the other card from the lower point, the other camera I pulled, and there he was again. So I looked at the time, and I'm like, okay, he hit the actual lower camera first, and he came from whatever direction. Followed that up, and he was doing a loop. I'm like, man, he's looking for does because it's pretty much peak rut at that point. New deer pushed in looking for does because we don't shoot does, so we keep a lot of does around. So I'm like, all right, I was like, maybe he'd be back tonight. So me and Dad, we have two stands on that side of the property, and we just started hunting that deer, and never saw him. We got pictures of him all year, all season. We were getting pictures. That deer never left the property, but he would, he'd be there in the daylight, but it was, more working, right? So I think Dad, he wasn't retired yet. He was back at work. I was, working. My job requires a lot of overtime, so. Every time I go pull a car, I'm like, oh, there he was. There's 40 pictures of him this week. And daylight, night pictures, there was no pattern. You're not a pattern deer like that. But he was there. He was living there. So fast forward to gun season that year. I went to a spot, pretty steep ridge. And I came up from the top. And I tried to get about halfway down it. There's a spot where they travel down there. Wanted to hunt there for the week anyways. But that morning I got up, and it was one of those mornings, it was just real foggy. And got to the top of the hill, and, slipping down, it's close to a bedding area. So, I take binoculars with me, and I kind of just scan the place. And I did see some deer down there, and I was like, man, that's probably a buck, the way it looks, but I just, you couldn't tell. And it was, it was far away, but in reality, it's not that far, probably 150 yards, but it's just so thick. Well, pulling the cameras later, he was in there. Right? There was another buck that was coming through too, and I think that's the one that I saw. So I hunted all that week, nothing. Gun season, you feel like a cheater when you're in there with the gun. It's you're like, man, nothing's getting by me this week because you're carrying a bow for so long, you pull out the gun. But he got by. So. Finished out that season of 17.
A buck like that, bow or gun, it don't matter. They're tough to get.
Yeah, I'd like to get it with a bow, but if it's gun season, I'm not too proud to pull the trigger.
I'm with you on that.
So I went through 17. Had pictures of him all through the late season too. Whole late season, and through January, he was there. I just couldn't get him. It just it's so sporadic. You know, I'd hunt one place, he'd be another spot.
Did you pass a lot of tempting bucks hunting
I did.
him?
I did.
Yeah.
I ended up shooting one later that year. It was another pretty nice 10-pointer.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember that deer.
He wasn't as big, but yeah, he was an older deer. You know, he had the mass and all that.
Yeah.
So I think he's 140 something inch. But so yeah, after that season, I'm like, I'm killing that deer next year. So couldn't find his sheds, and never did find them. So went into 18. I actually got a new position in the company I work for, and it's all, you know, out of town work. Mm-hmm. So you're working everywhere. So I'm like, wow, see how this goes. I was able to come back a little bit in the 18 season, and that deer showed up. He came back. I think it was Halloween. Mm-hmm. It was Halloween. So he came back about a week and a half earlier in 18, because I think he spent the whole season of 17, that last half, seeing all the does we had. You know, there's a lot of natural food that grows through there. I think he liked the property, great bedding coverage area.
Yeah.
So he came back, you know, 10, 11 days.
Back then we had that huge pine area.
It's all pines in that one spot.
They've cut that since then.
Yeah, it was a great spot from the lay. So I think he liked that property enough that he decided to come back a little earlier. And then, yeah, I hunted him as much as possible that fall when I was home. And it was the same thing. You know, it was, a ton of pictures of him. He got with the does, a lot of night pictures, but also a lot of day pictures. But you just, a deer like that, he's just, you see him about every 3 or 4 days on camera. Yeah. And it's, there's just no tell. And he's coming from different directions. It's just like, man, how am I going to piece this together? So I went through the whole 18 season. I never saw him once from the stand. Nothing. So I'm like, man, I was like, I hope he lived. And I never heard anything about anybody, killing him or whatever.
Yeah, there's a gas station in town where sometimes they hang up pictures.
Pictures
you better believe we were checking.
Yep, that old check-in station. Yep. We'd always go in there. So I go into the 19 season.
And the 18, they were still checking them in a lot of times.
I think so.
Person.
Yeah.
And it's all online now.
Yeah, everything's online
by phone.
Now.
But yeah, back then guys would still take them in, check them in, get the picture hung up on the wall and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, it was a cool little place. Go check out, see what's been, people are killing around you.
But he made it. He survived.
He made it. Yeah, he survived the 18 season. I didn't know that until the 19 season. So fast forward to 2019. That summer, I put, food plot in, did my normal stuff while I was home, and got the stands, ready, positioned, and really for that deer, I had a stand in place, for that buck as I come home. So
you weren't just deer hunting.
No, it was everything. And that was, just in the hopes he'd live and was going to come back. I still to this day I don't know where he ever came from. So I'm like, well, if he's alive, I'm probably gonna see him this area first, just like we've been doing the last 2 years. So get all the stands hung, get everything I could out in preparation for the season, and then our outer season started for work, so I go out of town, and I'm doing a job in at a nuke plant out in Arizona, and I'm running night shift out there. And this was the year I had cell cams.
Yeah.
And because working on the road all year, I don't want to just hear what's on camera. I want to see what's on camera. Yeah. So I had I think I had 6 cell cams that year, and same thing every day. I'd get up out of the hotel. I'd go to work. I'd sit in the parking lot, wait on my buddy, who's another big elk hunter. He dude kills massive elk in Utah. So he'd always roll up next to me. We'd sit there and talk for a little bit, and we'd go in. So I was waiting on him one day, and I'm just pulling my phone. I'm scrolling through the app, and Arizona time, I think it's like 3 hours behind. So it's 4 o'clock in Arizona, 7 o'clock here, so it's dark. You got a nighttime picture right then of that buck, right there in front of my camera, and I'm like, that's him. And he put on he got his kickers. That's where he got a split brow with that. It's
Yeah.
like a big devil point or something, kind of curls up, and then that G2 was split. Um, I will say, and I think in 17 he was a mainframe 9. He was a 10 back in 18, and then he was back on his mainframe 9. You know, you could it's the same deer. You know, people say, "Oh, they're not going to do that," but they do. You could see some points starting to split at the brow, you know, off his brow and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, 100% same buck. So he came back at 19 as a mainframe 9, split G2, and I think the G2 was split on his left side. I have to look. And actually, the one horn is the same. It's split G2 on the left and that split brow on the left. So, and he had a real dark antler chocolate rack. I'm like, man, there. I was like, that's him, 100%. That is him. So I, showed my buddy. I'm like, I said, we got to finish this outage. Like, I got to get home. Like, I got to go. And it was October 24th, I believe, or 27th, one of those days. So he came in even earlier that year.
Yeah.
So we go through this outage out in Arizona. I'm, obviously watching my phone the whole time. I'm like, all right, he's there. Finish that outage, laying in the hotel, getting ready to fly back. The next morning, my manager texted me, and he was like, "Hey, heard you guys finished up that outage." I said, "Yeah, it's all done. We're good to go." And he was like, "Well, yeah, this plant's having problems on this outage. You want to go there next?" And I just sent him a picture of that bug, and he knew I was a big hunter, and he hunted a little bit himself too. He's a farm guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he grew up on a farm. I sent him a picture of that buck, and he was like, "Never mind." And so he let me. I mean, I've been working a lot that year too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't like I was just.
It's time to cash that in.
Yeah. So he's like, never mind. He goes, go hunt that deer. So I come home, and it's right after the 1st of November, and I'm like, okay, I gotta. It's been a while since I've been home, so I need to check my bow, make sure everything's on, make sure I'm good to go on that. So get to the house. I think it was on a Saturday or Friday, whatever. Get all my hunting stuff out, close out. I washed them again just to make sure, put them back in a box. Got everything prepped, and got the bow out. Started shooting. Make sure I was grouping good, and everything was like I hadn't set it down for months. So I felt confident. I'm like, okay. So packed up the truck. And I said, I'm leaving. I'm going after this deer, and I'm not coming home. Well, the following weekend, my sister was actually getting married. Or it was 2 weeks later. The sister was getting married.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
she had a wedding, and I think it was on a Friday. And I'm like, we'll see.
It was a hunting season.
Yeah, right in the middle, prime rut.
We need to talk to her about that.
Yeah. So so I'm like, all
Well,
right.
it all worked out.
Yeah, it did. So I'm like, all right, we'll go down there and start hunting. So. One thing I didn't want to do is go down there and spend all this time in the woods and be like it was the last 2 seasons where, you're playing cat and mouse. It's a game of chess with these deer. So, they're playing for their life.
Yeah.
You're playing for the head and the antler, whatever, So I'm like, all right, I gotta think of a plan. Something a little different, and I decided I was going to go into it and hunting one location because I had him on 2 locations the whole time. And I'm like, I don't want to start bouncing around and then, I'll be up here, he's down here, I'm down here, he's up here. I don't want to play that game. I want to just go hunt one spot.
Buck like that would get on to you pretty quick.
He'll catch you. So I was like, if I hunt one spot, you're still taking a big chance on hunting one spot with your scent. But I was like, I feel confident with that spot. So I said, that's what I'm doing. So I got down there, started hunting on a Sunday. Monday morning, wake up, roll off the cot, get everything ready, take off. And I can get that stand, it's only about a half a mile walk, a little over, and slip in there quiet as possible. I get up in the stand, and sun's coming up. And it's probably about 8 o'clock. And that's when I had those cell cams, like on my phone, I kept notifications on, and I felt my phone vibrate. Now I looked at it, and it was a notification from Spartan cell cams. And I just had this gut feeling. I'm like, here, let's see what this is. I opened it up, and it was that buck on the camera above me in front of my other stand. I'm like, man, here we go. It's going to be this. Yeah, so it's just a roller coaster of everything. So I'm like, maybe he'll drop over the hill, which they never do. Wishful thinking. And he didn't. He didn't come over. So I'm like, all right, well, he's here. So I hunted that morning, hunted that afternoon, and then into the evening, went back to the camp, and the whole week was like that. And I ended up having to change plans because the wind was just changing crazy through the week, and it swirls on those hills. And I'm like, well, it's not worth taking a chance. If you get winded by that deer, he's not coming back. So my dad ended up coming down the following Saturday to hunt with me. And I was like, he's like, where do you want to hunt at? I was like, you hunt that lower stand, because I think that's going to be, if we kill that deer, that's where we're going to kill him at. Like, that was really his main spot. And I said, if that deer were to die on this property, I would highly suspect that's our best probability place to kill him.
Yeah.
So I said, you go hunt that. I said, I'll hunt the one up top. So he did. I went up top, and, we saw some deer. We never saw that buck. So I waited on him because you got to cross where I was hunting to go to where I had him at. So I got out of the stand, I was waiting on him, and, it's pitch black. I could see his silhouette coming. So we met up, and he's like, you see anything? I said, whatever I saw. And he was like, yeah, same. And we're like, hey, let's get out of here, because that buck he's close. He's close, because we were getting a lot on that top camera too, and suspected he was bedding out there. So we got out, and literally we walked 400 yards, flat too. So it's not like you're hiking uphill and it's taking a while. It's just a flat walk, easy as can be. Got back to the tent, got in there, I set my bow aside, dumped my pack, and I pulled my phone out just because I was, I always had that phone in my hand then, looking. Pulled it out, there's a message from Spartan Camera, opened it up, there's that buck out there, 400 yards away.
Yeah.
Standing there, I'm like, man, he was bedded.
Just missed him.
He was bedded close. Yeah. So Dad ended up going home that night, and I was like, I said, I'm staying. He's like, when are you coming home? I said, whatever.
Green light.
It's gone. It's on. Okay. Yeah.
We had a little issue with that earlier.
Yeah, it's good. So Dad goes home that night, and I'm like, I'm staying, and I don't, I'm on day 7 now. No shower, nothing like that. And had a bunch of water down there. Had a grill I was cooking on, whatever. So sister's wedding was coming up the following weekend, and I'm like, I'll miss it. I don't care. Like, I'll miss it for a deer like this. Man, I'm like, yeah, we'll see when we get to that point.
That's dedication, I might just, right there.
Yeah, like, maybe I'll just drive home.
Might get you in trouble.
Yeah, so I was already thinking of plans for that. Like, well, maybe I'll unhook the trailer. I'll come home and for the night, and then just come back down in the morning.
Yeah. And
then hope work doesn't call. So Sunday morning, I was like, okay, I laid in bed all that night, and had a little fire going, and I'm like, I got to think of something for the morning. I said, that deer, he came through up top. He's bedding right there. He's going to go back to bed eventually, and then maybe I'll catch him out, because the weather's supposed to be clear in the morning. I was like, I might be able to catch him out on top in the morning. So I said, that's what I'm going to do on my hot top. So I got up that morning, got everything ready. And you kind of, since it's pretty close to get to, you don't have to leave super early and get up there, 30 minutes before the sun comes up and all that. So I just kind of waited a little bit. I'm like, all right, we'll take off. So I get up, get to my stand. It was an old ladder stand.
More important to be quiet than
yeah, I like. I'm all about just slipping in. Yeah. You can slip in and out pretty easy right there, and you don't make any noise in that spot. So I get to my stand, tie my bow off on my cable. I got like 4 or 5 foot off the ground, and I felt that wind. Like, it was quiet, as calm as could be. And the first gust of wind, it wasn't a big blow, but it was hitting me in the face. What's going up the ladder, it's hitting me in the face. So I mean, it's blowing right out to where that deer's going to be coming from. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there for about 10 seconds and was like, I can't hunt here, because if he is bedding out there, and he comes in to cross over through here,
He'll bust you there.
you're done.
Yeah.
So I said, well, so much for that plan. I said, well, I'm just going to go back to the lower stand and hunt that. I'm not going to go back to the tent. I'm not going to go back to camp and just hang out, wait for the evening. I'll go to the lower stand. So I was mad because it's, now it's starting to get daylight because I waited a while to get in that other stand because that was the plan. So I slipped down to that lower stand and, you can see everything in the woods at this point. And I did as quiet as possible. Went up the stand, and that stand there, it's about 22 foot, a ladder. So it's up there, and I was trying to get everything quiet, get my pack hung, without making too much noise, get my bow pulled up, knock the arrow. And I'm like, I'll burn the morning here for now. And I looked up and I saw it was a button buck. He was on the ridge. He was just grazing or something. I'm like, well, we got, there's a button buck there. And where it's at, it's real thick. So it's I'm on the side of this ridge. And it's extremely thick below. And I pulled out those binoculars and I just started scanning because I don't care how thick it is. If you got good glass, you can look in there. You can find stuff.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
So I was looking and I found a doe. All I saw was her head. And I'm like, all right, where's the doe? And then I just kept looking. I'm like, well, here it is. Second week of November. Maybe a buck's with her. I'm just watching, and I focus in on her, and I slowly take the binos to scan to her behind her, to her left, and all of a sudden, a buck popped. With this little window of brush, I seen this buck. I'm like, it was like a pretty good buck, and all of a sudden, he turned his head and faced me, and I saw that split brow tine come up, and it was these deer, when they get to that age, they get their stickers on. They have unique characteristics where once you learn that deer, it's, So I'm like, that's him. That's the first time I've ever seen him. And I'm like, he's down here. He never went back to bed. He must have left the bed that night, got with a doe, and then was staying with her on that back ridge. So I'm like, that's him. And they were actually kind of going away from me. And that's a really good bedding area down there. So I'm like, they're going back to bed. He's going to stay with her in that bed all day. But I was like, he'll probably come back here this evening through here because it's just a main travel path.
Yeah.
And kind of by a big travel path. I had to stand for him, but I said they'll be back through here soon. It's like, all right, so we got a sighting of him on hoof after 3 seasons. So check that box off. Now we got to, I know where he's heading to. I know what he's going to do now. So it's like, now we can get on to him. So that's what's going through my head at this. And I'm still watching this deer. He's set, he's over 100. He's 100 yards at this point, and maybe a little closer. But I'm like, all right. So I just watched him. I watched the doe go, and then I watched him fall. And then it kind of opens up, if they were coming back up the hill to my level, it opens up right there. And then she turned and started coming up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now maybe something's changing now. They're coming up. So the doe she came out, got in this, I'm calling it an open area, but it's still hardwoods. She got in there and that button buck was still up there. And that's why I started worrying about him. I'm like, man, if he sees me or wins me, it's a done deal.
Yeah.
So she got with him, was looking at the button buck. He was watching them. They just they got relaxed. Tail was flicking. So I went back to that big buck, and he got just to the edge, that real nasty thick stuff. And he stood there for 10 minutes and didn't move a muscle. And just stood there. Then he started looking around. And I'm like, as soon as he comes out, he's going to be calm, because that's what they're doing. He's staying back to thick stuff, making sure it's a clear path. And that's what he did. He came out in the open timber, and that they were just kind of grazing. And then he'd been there so much for 3 seasons. Like, that was, to him, that was his place. Yeah. So that tail flicked. He just put his head down and just started walking, and he was coming right. Perfect. Just the way I set that for that stand to be set up. And I'm like, man, I was like, so I was, buck fever and all that. But over the years, like, you kind of hold that in until after
you
the
learn
shot.
how to manage it.
Yeah. So, you're nervous, but you're not thinking. You just, just keeping your nerves calm. And he come in, he was, I don't know, 30 some yards. It was a perfect broadside shot. I drew back and just set the pin on him, and it was a perfect shot. And he actually, I think he only ran about 40 yards.
Yeah.
I saw the arrow. I mean, as soon as I touched that arrow off, I just felt good about it. Arrow full pass through. He just jumped over to his right, went down, just trotted, and then he stopped, and then he just, you can see him do that death wobble, and he kind of just fell.
So you watched him fall?
I watched him fall, but the weird thing about it was, I'm up in the stand, I was actually, I think I was sitting down and watching him fall, and he had his head, because, I was trying to die right then, but he had his laying there, and he picked his head up, and like he looked like right at me.
Did he?
Looked right at me in the stand, and it was almost like
I knew where that came from.
It just kind of felt like he knew, like he knew about me, like I knew about him, which is weird to say, but it was like one of those things. Like he looked right at me, and it was kind of like, yeah, you got me, So
That's
then
cool.
he kind of tipped, his head just kind of rolled over. So I gave him some time, and I was like, I got to get out of the stand before I fall out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting out one way or another. It's either going to be on my own or I'm going to be falling.
Yeah.
So I got the bow on the ground, got the pack on the ground, ran down, and I don't want to run up on him right away, because these bigger deer, they get an adrenaline rush too. They might not be dead.
Yeah.
You get an adrenaline rush, they might just jump up. So I grabbed everything. I did knock an arrow just to be safe, and then I kind of skirted around him on this hillside to get above him and not run right up on him. And I just took my time, and I just kind of sat there for a minute and just watched him. So I called my dad, and he was getting ready for church or something. So my mom answered, and she was like, yeah, is everything all right? And I'm like, yeah. I said, where's Dad at? She said, well, he's in the shower right now. I was like, all right. I was like, well, tell him to call me when he's out. And, she knows, well, it's 8 o'clock.
Probably got something.
I shot that deer as like 7:53. So maybe it's like right at 8, or just like a couple minutes before 8. But I called them at like 8, and like it's 8 o'clock. We don't hear from him all week. And so he probably killed something, or something bad happened, whatever. So she was like, yeah, is everything all right? I was like, well, I killed that deer. And she's like, the one you've been after? I said, yeah. I said, I'm looking at him now. She was like, well, I'm going to get him out of the shower. So I heard her, I heard the door open, and I heard him say, what? And she was like, he's on the phone. And then he just grabbed the phone. He was like, yeah. He's like, you there? I'm like, yeah, can you hear me? And he was like, yeah, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm standing over that deer. And he was like, the one you've been after? I said, yeah. I said, he was like, you got him? I was like, yeah. And he's like, how big is he? I was like, he's bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
I expect him to be 160 inch. Not taking into consideration a deer like that, everything's bigger. The head's bigger. So on a normal deer's, ear to ear tip, 16 and a half inch typically. These bigger, older deer got a bigger head. So ear to ear tip's about 18.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start looking at those numbers, his main beam was 6.5 inch mass measurements all the way up. He had 40 some inches of mass. But I said he's big. I said, I don't know what he scores. I don't care what he scores. I was like, he's a lot bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
And then I called you after that.
Yeah. And I'm a pastor, so I was working that day. I was at church, but I knew when I got that call what it had to be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't call me like that.
No, I'm not calling anybody from stand.
I mean, something was wrong or something was really right.
Yeah,
right. It ended up being really right. And I came over that day.
Yeah, we got a picture somewhere hanging.
By the time I was all done that day, you were home and had them hanging. And I came over, and somewhere I've got some pictures of that day. But yeah, that's a great story and a great buck. Did anybody ever find sheds?
Not of that. I found a couple. I got one set laying there that I thought was him, but after I looked, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Great buck, 160 inch sheds, but wasn't his. I would like to know where he was in the summer, where his home range. I have a suspicion on where he was. But yeah, I don't know anybody else, but I also don't really talk to people either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got our neighbors, a couple of our neighbors are
some
really good.
Some you don't.
Yeah, some of them are really good. I mean, they're all as far as not poaching off you, sneaking on your property, they're all good. But some of them I just don't talk to, and there's a couple others that I do talk to.
Yeah.
You know, we'll trade camera pictures, but at this time I didn't really know them. I mean, I've been down there forever, but I just, you know, when I go down, I'm not real social. Like I'm there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know. But over the years, I got to know a couple of these guys. And we'll keep tabs, you know, together. They send me what they got on camera, and you know, most times we're all hunting different deer. But I would like to know. I'd like to get some pictures of him in velvet, see what he looked like now. He looked like a giant then, but I had no clue, didn't know what he did from, you know, 1st of February to middle of October. No clue what he was doing.
Yeah. So what did he score?
180 was the gross. I didn't do that. I didn't care what the net was. I never turned him into Pope and Young. I got one deer I turned in for that, just, you know, first one ever. I've never turned one in since. But yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He did gross 180 right on, on the nose.
Yeah. And we do have some pretty nice sheds. I know people got to be wanting to see them. There's one matching set.
Yep.
This is a 10 with some little character kickers.
Yeah. That other set there, that's I actually stained those myself. They were
you did?
Yeah, they were kind of faded.
I should have. They got to be one. They can see the tips on
so those actually look bigger. I think they're about 2 inches bigger than the other one, but they look a lot more bigger.
Well, they got good mass.
Yeah,
and these came from the same area.
No, one of them did. The other one came from another place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think the one that I stained, they came from another property. Yeah. It's a whole other county, but
you know, everybody wants a 180.
Yeah.
But thanks for telling the story, because it gives people a realistic. A lot of people, you know, and I'm not slamming outdoor media, but man, you watch a lot of this stuff, and in a half an hour, it all happens.
Yeah.
And it's just not realistic.
It's not.
People need to hear stories like this.
Yeah.
I mean, keep them going, you know.
Right. There's a lot of, you know, that's why I say hunting deer like that. Like you got to go into the season, you know, not planning on not killing anything, but you got to go in the season knowing there's a pretty good possibility you might not shoot anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the Drury brothers, follow their channel, and I mean, those guys are probably the best whitetail hunters probably ever. You know, as far as they know everything about these deer, the science behind it. And
Mark and Terry.
Yeah, you know, they've got the
others,
property, right? Yeah, there's others too, but you know, those guys they have the property to hunt. You know, you watch them manage deer, and you know, they're after one deer, and they're like, we can't kill him, and then they finally get him.
Mark, Terry, if you're listening, you are welcome on this podcast anytime you want.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah,
you know, we'll roll the red carpet out for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But well, Casey, thanks for telling us about that buck.
Yeah, we'll get some pictures.
You're giving me some pictures to, you know, that you've probably already seen some of them on the video, but yeah, that's a great story, and so thanks for telling it.
Yeah,
thanks
no
for
problem.
sharing. Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope this has been helpful to you in some way, and I know it has been for me. So thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Hinkle. I'm with Casey Hinkle today, and that's how I see it from my stand.
Thank you for listening today. Be sure to tell your buddies and follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms. Y'all take care.